Hello and welcome to making a track in 1 hour using the Rapid Flow template. It's definitely time I put my mouth where my money is, my money where my mouth is. What is it that you say? My apologies, it's taken a little while to get to this point. I've actually tried to record this video already 2-3 times. And I realized that moderating it while I was making music was not feasible. Then I had some technical difficulties, but in this take I actually did manage to record a session. So what you're seeing me doing here is using the Rapid Flow template to record a track in 1 hour. And right now all I have running is a kick drum from my analog kick drum sample pack, as well as a hi-hat. And the melody bassline element is being made with Moog Subharmonicon that you can see I'm tweaking there on the left side. Big shout out to Sander, who actually placed this wonderful device in my studio. It's really complicated to use, but once you get the hang of it, it's very inspiring and very different to most synths that I've used. So here I'm just sort of checking if this groove will work with the drums that I have there. And as you may hear, there's a little bit of reverb and I think delay also on the Subharmonicon. I'm using a pedal in the next to the MIDI keyboard. You can see it. It's the Specular Tempus. You see I have a patch bay with all those cables hanging out. Basically, I'm routing most things when I record them directly to some effect pedal. And in this case, I am recording the Moog with some effects directly through that little Mackie mixer into my sound card. I do have some EQs set up on the right side of the screen. You'll see those brown units and those silver units above that. There's further EQs with everything that I record goes through them, so I'm already able to do some low cuts, some high cuts sometimes, and to make sure that things come into the computer immediately as I need them, and that I don't have to do too much processing ideally in the computer afterwards. So I think at this point I hadn't yet realized that I wasn't recording, or maybe I have already started recording now. So if I have started recording, let's see, does it look like? Yes, the little red light is on the AKAI, the APC. So I am recording. I've now switched over so you can see the little bit of audio that I've recorded off of the Moog. And what you're seeing here is the Rapid Flow template. And as you can see in the compose section, I have a track called External. And I'm now copying over that file to, I'm picking if this is going to be sort of my harmony or my lead. It's going to be the harmony. So I am labeling it and giving it a color. I've realized that helps tremendously later when you're looking on the APC. So I'm just checking how the recording turned out. There actually turned out to be a sidechain already on this channel, which I realized then, hey, this sounds kind of cool. Okay, let's keep that. It's a little bit low in volume, so I know I remember this. I'm going to boost it up a little bit. And all the other processing is as you know it from the template. I should point out that I've done one thing here, which is I've split up the live effects processing and the mastering. As you can see behind the Atmo, there is a super channel and there's a mastering, basically so that I can record the effects without mastering. I'll talk about that a bit more later. So I'm now bringing in the kick and the hi-hat just to see if this is grooving the way that it needs to be, and it seems to be the case. So far I'm having fun here, so that's always good. Yes, so let's have a listen to what this is sounding like. Yes, now I'm bringing up the Semblance, I think it's called, the Telemark from Analog Solutions Telemark, which is basically a SEM clone. I'm triggering that via MIDI actually from the Beatstep Pro from Arturia, which is a super amazing controller that I can recommend anyone to get. So I'm just playing some notes right now into the Telemark to give this track a bit of a bass foundation. As you can see, it's making a funky little circle on the spectrum analyzer. Again, this is a stereo sound because I'm sending it through the pedal from the Specular Tempus. I think it has a little bit of reverb on it also. Yeah, and I know some of this is maybe a little bit weird, but there is this adage of if it sounds right, it is right. And I've realized sometimes having a little bit of stereo in the bass line above a certain frequency is really nice. So what I would do eventually is I would filter all the stereo information below 200 later on, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to record it as it is. So yeah, just finding a nice spot for the filter to sit and getting ready to record a bass here. Oh, seems like here I've lost my sound. I must have patched something wrong because the bass is gone. You can see the confusion on my face. What did I do? What did I do? Let's figure out what's happening with the patch bay. Still no sound. So yeah, these are the bits that hopefully, if you're in the studio, this doesn't happen too often or too long. I have to, there we go, I found my sound back. Because that, yeah, can totally take you out of the flow. Ideally, this can just be one stream of consciousness, but you know, little challenges like this do always come up. Okay, so now I'm adding more of the reverbed bass sound. Still looking for the right notes. That last one wasn't quite in key. I'm just restarting the sequencer here because in the background I am also running some clocks to external gear, and sometimes they just go off, especially when you're streaming or recording 4K screens and running sample spectrum analyzers. Yeah, my computer suffers a little bit sometimes, so if you see me restarting the sequencer, it's because something has lost sync. So now it's time to record this bass sound, I think. Looks like I already started the recording. I see the external channel is actually already has a little red dot and my mouse is hovering over it, so we are already recording the bass here. I missed that. Apologies, the video isn't exactly synchronized. I'm still working on these details. I'm a better sound engineer than a video engineer, that's for sure. But I'll get there, This is only like the third video I think that I've done in this direction. I hope that you're enjoying this split screen so that yeah, you can kind of see everything that's happening. It is 4K, so you should be able to zoom into the parts that are most interesting for you. But this was a good way for me not to get too distracted by trying to switch video feeds while I was doing this. So this has gone obviously now into the bass category. Again, I'm labeling this and giving it a color just to find it back later. And let's go, let's have a look what we've done here. There's our bass. One of those notes is a little bit detuned, but in the end I lived with it. You know, for a demo it's okay, and things don't always have to be absolutely perfectly tuned. I've quickly put a sidechain on that bass line, as you may have seen quickly in the plugin. So it's getting ducked by the kick drum, very classic technique in dance music. I'm sure this is nothing new to you, and if it is new to you, then let me know, because I'm happy to do a tutorial about it, but you'll find thousands on the internet. Yeah, so maybe a final word on sidechaining. The key is the release time. The attack should be at 0 so that it pushes away exactly when your kick drum hits, and the release time is where you get your groove, so the release time of the compressor. I think here I was considering doing some minor pitch of the file because it felt a little bit flat, but then I thought better of it. I thought, oh god, this is going to take time and not going to sound very nice until I get it right, so I just decided to live with it. So right now we have our kick drum going, basic hi-hats and a bass line and sort of a harmonic melodic element. And how far in are we on this video? I can't see it exactly. I think at this point I've realized that I think I wanted to do a second take of the Subharmonicon. Now that I had a bass groove, I had a better feeling of yeah, what I should be aiming for maybe. So you see me tuning the Subharmonicon again, make a nice groove with the delay and the bass. bringing in a little bit of that reverb. Yeah, the specular tempest pedal is amazing. Big thanks to Stimming for showing that in one of his videos. I can't remember exactly which one. It was the Vermona DRM1 MK4. I remember now. I heard it and I was like, oh my god, I have to have that. Yeah, you can sync it via MIDI. It has lots of different effects. It sounds really interesting. It's fully stereo. Very interesting pedal, Specular Tempest, that I can recommend checking out. It's actually the pedal I use most in my studio when recording synths. It has great possibilities for reverb and delay. Here we go. So starting the record of this new sound on the Moog. There we go, recording. So this is maybe an interesting point that I should maybe highlight. So it's second nature to me, but I always record my sounds with modulation and long takes. Obviously you can do all of this later in software somehow and record your synth with filter fully open, but it's not going to sound as good as its onboard filter. And this way I'll have all the risers and little groove changes and things in a very long file, and I can just select different parts of it to use. So as you see, this is a long take, and I'm messing with the filter as well as the release of both the filter and the amp envelope. Just to have different flavors of this sound to use in different parts of the track. Looks like I'm pretty happy about that groove. Yeah, this was actually a fun session to do. I had a good time. This was actually great advice from Sebastian Millert, one of the people who does truly an amazing masterclass that if you have any possibility at all, I would really recommend to join. He said, if you're feeling stuck in the studio, or if you're not exactly inspired, or not exactly sure what you're doing, or the vibe's not there, move, stand up, jump around, dance. Don't just sit in front of your computer screen like you're working on an Excel. You know, this is dance music. This is music, hopefully, that will inspire you and people listening to it to dance, to move. So, you know, get your creativity going by also not becoming static. And it's great advice, definitely. It makes the whole process more fun, and you connect much more to the music in an organic way. So thank you, Sebastian, for one of very many amazing tips that you have shared in your masterclass. Yeah, absolutely life-changing. I think here we go. I'm selecting the part of the clip that I'm going to be using, so you can just drag and select and then click Control L or on an Apple L so that you have that as a loop set in your software. I'm sure you know this, but yeah, you just select what you want from your loop, hit Control or Apple L, and then you have that set as a loop in your sequence from there on. And as you can see, that's a pretty long take now. So I'm just going to use that. I'm just going to let that run. And this is sometimes where really nice happy accidents happen. That if you have two long takes like that, it happens more often than you would think, that they come together in a really nice way. And I think that's a little bit where sometimes the magic spirit of making music lives, where these things fuse together and form something bigger than what you'd originally maybe thought of. There you saw my limiter was clamping down on the sound because I just tried to put it too loud. So you see in this case it's not cutting through the mix maybe as much as I would have liked. The limiter is doing a bit, so this probably means it has a little bit too much bass, and maybe it could use a bit more mids. Because I knew I was doing a really quite quick session here, I wasn't actually doing that. Obviously removing the high cut filter helps. So The limiter is there to protect you from basically doing stupid stuff, or at least let's put it this way, it's to protect me from doing stupid stuff, which is why they're there. So that to make sure that your kick and your bass drum, and your bass line will definitely have the primary focus. So you can see this limiter here is saying, okay, well, you know, this is okay, you can get away with this, but any more level is not going to make it louder because I'm just going to remove it for you. So I'm moving back towards the sweet spot now in the template and moving on to the next sound. So what do we got here? Patching another synth now over to the pedal, which is the, I think this is the Prophet 600 that yes, definitely sounds like the Prophet. So this is actually this is an interesting little bit of trivia. This is the world's first synth that ever had a MIDI connection. It's obviously made by Sequential Circuits. It was released, I think it was very early 80s. Okay, and that weird sound you just heard, that was my sound card losing its input 1-2. I have no idea, that's never happened before, but right now my ASIO channels 1-2 are dead. It's gonna take me a little while to figure out that I can't record anything more on those channels. Like, you're gonna see me looking at the computer in disbelief in a second going, what did I do wrong? No, but actually digitally something happened there. That crunchy sound you may have heard on headphones is, yeah, just those channels are gone. So eventually I did figure that out and patched my main output to some other channels on another sound card, and then we were fine again. So this, you're gonna see me trying to record something now without input, which is gonna be quite funny. Still very motivated to record the Sequential. Going over there to try to record some pads probably. And right about now is the point where I go, why am I not hearing anything? Yeah, there you go, you can see it on my face, like, this was working just now. Put it louder. Louder is always better, right? Nothing. No sound. So sorry about this. It took me a little while to catch this. I think I actually did pause the record at a certain point because I realized, hey, this is weird, something's wrong. But this is the stuff that happens in the studio, you know? And my main advice is when stuff like this happens, don't get stuck in bug fixing when you're in the middle of a creative session. Like, find a quick way around it, as I did in this case by patching into a different channel on a different sound card. Or move on to something completely different that is working. Don't get stuck 1 hour now trying to figure out some bug and restarting your computer and what knows, because you'll lose the flow that you're in with this track. And the main thing is staying in that creative flow and making sure that you get down the musical ideas fast so they feel coherent and together, even so that your clocks are stuck in the same groove. Because every time you reboot your computer, if you're using MIDI clocking to external devices, they may all of a sudden be different and not be in the timing that you started writing the track in. Okay, so there you go. I've sussed it out now. I've switched over to a different channel. This was a little pause in the recording. And yeah, thank you for bearing with me for a few minutes while we try to fix that bug. And now, let's see. Now we have sound again. So as you see, I'm recording on channel 2324 now of my interface. There we go. And we have sound again, and we're recording the pad in. So I wasn't really feeling those low chords or low octaves, so I'm going off the keyboard here now and try some different things. You know, keep recording, keep tracking, keep trying different things until you get something that really clicks, you know? Until you get something where you go, yeah, if I was on a dance floor, I'd love to listen to that. This is already better. I like this sound. I like this high notes up there. Adds a different dimension and it'll fit better in the mix than more low stuff. as you can see on the spectrum analyzer, it fits in really nicely, sort of above, what is it, 400 hertz all the way up to 5-6 kilohertz. There's a lot of space in the mix there, and this sound will fit in there very nicely. So it's important, of course, to pick your sounds so that they fit together nicely in the mix. And that's one of the beauties of the Rapid Flow template, is because you only have 8 tracks, you're not going to be able to overload it with different sounds because you'll run out of tracks really quickly. So every sound has to count. I'm playing like a arpeggio high up with slow attack and release times so that it becomes kind of a sound wash. Nice trick if you're on a synth, yeah. Set slow attack and release and just play an arpeggio fast, and you'll get this. And this was the sound where I realized, okay, this clicks, this fits, I like this. I'm just messing with the filter a little bit. There's maybe a little bit of distortion going on at some points. I don't mind that too much. That's okay. Things can be distorted a bit. So I knew that that last little bit that I recorded there was nice. So I'm stopping the recording. I'm just going to select that for now, just to be quick and keep moving. Oh, it seems like I've selected quite a lot more. I know I go back to this and just select the last bit that I really liked. So taking this over now, and this is going to become my harmonic element. There we go. Now I'm selecting just those last few notes that I really liked from this take. As you can hear, the reverb is baked into the sound already. Again, courtesy of the specular tempus. I'm just using one reverb setting also for all of these sounds. That was great advice from Sebastian also, that they all fit together much better if it's just one character of reverb than using 15 different reverbs in your mix. Of course, there's other styles where that could work, but actually it's a really good point. Things fit together really nicely, maybe for more minimal, slower, simpler music like I do. Yeah, so now it seems like it's time to do some maybe groove elements off of the Vermona DRM1. And there we have that nice little pad adding a vibe. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to be recording some toms now. There you see my MIDI was out of sync, so I'm restarting the sequencer. Now it's back on time. Again, sending these toms over to the reverb pedal. That's the same toms going through the specular tempus. What a weird name. I wonder what that means. Intriguing name. Yeah, so now those toms are pretty much set to go. I'm gonna record. Actually, I'm filtering. It's a little bit out of camera, but I'm filtering the toms a bit now. I think I felt maybe there was a little bit too much high frequencies in that reverb return. I think I cut the lows a little bit also. Yeah, you see now it's a little bit more compact, that sound. It's just a very simple low cut, high cut EQ that I have out there. And now we go record. A little bit of delay on those toms also, that's kind of nice. Yeah, so that's enough. I'm just going to record, start my loop in the beginning, in the middle of this, because then I'll have the reverb tail from the last few hits. Otherwise, if I would start at the beginning, the reverb tail would be missing, which would sound very weird when it loops. So this is the toms, just renamed it, pulled it over there, give it a color. Let's stop the live input and go to the recording. Notice all my levels are a little bit lower when I play back, which means my gain structure isn't quite correct. I'm not hearing exactly what I record. I need to work on that in the future, but it doesn't matter. Just put up the clip gain and you'll get there too. This is the moment where I've decided it feels like this needs a little bit of like real world percussions, analog percussions. This is something actually that, yeah, of course, I've recorded acoustic instruments a lot before, but it wasn't until I saw Stimming's masterclass on Siny that I realized how much fun it is and how great it sounds when you just record your own percussions. So what I'm going to do now is just plug a mic. It's just a dynamic mic. It's nothing super special directly into my sound card. I do have a compressor there and other stuff, but just get the sounds done. I'm just going to jam it in there for the purposes of this demonstration and just record those sounds. I'm setting up my mic now to also record from a different channel than I normally would. It looks like I'm getting input, so that's good. No, it looks like I wasn't getting input, so I'm moving over to a different channel here. Where am I going to land? That's, I think, where my drummer compressor is normally patched into. Yeah, there we go. So at this moment, I realized I'm going to end up recording a mono signal on a stereo track. And I don't have that channel set up to record in mono on my sound card, so I just said, okay, let's go with it, let's just go with it. I didn't want to, put you through more bug fixing in this little overview of using the template. And there's a function in the utility plugin where you can just select one channel for playback, so that's fine. Let's record, keep the flow going. So unboxing my Trickkiste, as they say in German. That's just my box of toys, can't call it anything else, music instruments. Where I keep all kinds of funky percussion instruments that I've collected over the years. This was just meant more like thought of as atmospheric sounds that could be used in a break or in an intro. I'm just finding a good way to be able to play this now, because I'm actually a drummer. That's the first instrument that I learned to play properly. And I kind of needed both hands here. So in the end, I just end up squeezing it up to my chest. And what I've come to realize, and Stimming points to this, smaller is better. Somehow, like, the smaller the sounds are you're recording, the funkier they are in the mix. So very often with these percussion instruments, less is more. There's definitely a few good beats in that take. It's kind of like playing the triangle. It's very hard to play these percussion instruments really on time. Big respect to the people that can do this. I like the sound of that one. always wanted to record this one. That one always makes me think of the Karate Kid. I think this is the first time I've ever tried to put it in a track. Going Andino on you here, my South American roots coming out. So one of those notes, or some of those notes, could be cut and used for that atmospheric sound in the background. Again, this could be a cool atmospheric sound for the break. So I didn't end up using all of these sounds in the track. Obviously within an hour it's not so easy to edit all these sounds and find all the loops that you want to use. That would take a little bit more time. But I just wanted to show you the process of just recording all these little ideas in one take, and then later you can go back to it and find bits that you like. I ended up using just a short shaker loop for the track just to, kind of show the idea. But I think there's a lot of bits here now listening back where there was groovy bits from the shakers that I would pick up and work into the final track when I do the final mixdown or sequencing of it. Yeah, that was a nice little bit right there. All right, so I said, okay, that's enough now. There's definitely enough material there. I think I got a little bit carried away there, sorry. I realized that, I really like the sound of these kind of real recordings. It'll sound completely different to any sample that you take from anywhere. It'll sound real. It'll feel like, you'll notice you've recorded it in your room. It'll sound really different on your mixdown. So I can really recommend just whatever mic you have, even if it's the mic built into your laptop. Just record some sounds into it, some noises, or on your phone, and just fly it into your project. You'll get really nice vibes and just kind of, like a slightly different sound character than all the stuff that's coming out of the box. So at this point I'm starting to look at the recording I just did, and I'm going to dig through it and try to find a little loop that I can use for this session. So I'm taking out some of the elements that take up more bandwidth in the mix, just so I can have a clear listen to what I have here. Yeah, that's a good point actually, that if you have your hi-hats and your kick drums going, that takes up about, in my experience, 70-80% of your attention. So if you want to work on something in a bit more detail, I recommend taking those out and just work with maybe your main harmonic element and your bass line. It'll give you a much kind of less cluttered background to edit samples against or look for bits against that you want to use in your production. Otherwise it's very hard to hear what you're doing, so keeping it very minimal while you're looking for bits to use is a good idea. Putting a little bit of reverb onto this sound just while I'm listening to it. Yeah, that'd be nice for a breakdown part to use that. I think I realized that would be cool, so I've just looped it and copied it over and moved over to a next clip. I think at this point I was doing a pan flute assessment, if this is something I want to put in there right now. It could be a cool element if you process that a bit. Yeah, but I don't think I ended up going for it at this point. But you can feel how it adds a very different character. Like, yeah, it's just like all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this is a real room and this is a person playing. This isn't a sample that's been produced to perfection maybe, or recorded in a high-end studio. It's like, you know, it feels real. Now there was a glitch in the recording. I thought that was kind of interesting, so I wanted to focus in on it. You could hear how it was normal for a little while and then it just glitched out. I think I'm going to start digging for it now. Oh, how you can do this in Ableton very nicely. You just set a little marker and drag it around and it'll fix your playing in a very nice way. And I think it's about at this point that I realized the reason why I got into recording this, let's call it a little acoustic mic session, is because I wanted a shaker. And I think that's very important. Like now I'm getting a little bit distracted with just everything that I've recorded, but at some point I remember why I did this was to get back, to record a little shaker loop that gave this whole thing a little bit more energy. So I'm still experimenting here with little audio bits. And at this point I thought that glitch was kind of interesting. Yeah, so if you fix the timing on that, it could be cool, but I think I quickly realized, like, yeah, it's not like a total game changer for the track, so do we really need it? Probably not. But this is the point where I realized, wait a minute, I set out to record this to find a little shaker loop. That's actually why I started this. And it's really important that you don't get too lost in the details. You know, try, if you have a clear idea or feeling for something, do try to realize that vision. So here I now realized, okay, wait a minute, I wanted to make a little shaker. That's why I did this. But now I'm just looking for a little part that I can hopefully use without too much editing. And you can imagine if hi-hats were playing in a kick drum, this would be impossible. So yeah, maybe that's obvious, but yeah, it's a good little trick to minimize your background when you're going through this, and then, you know, bring it in to see if it grooves, see if it fits together. And this is where I'm realizing now what I've selected now is not really on point. It's not grooving the way I would hope that it does. But that was kind of interesting, I remember that. Not worth keeping, wasn't quite on the money. Obviously, by dragging the starting point of a short 2-beat loop, you can get different grooves happening because the file will play back differently in Ableton, which is one of the most amazing things about a software like Ableton, how flexibly you can work with loops. I think that's a huge advantage that it has over many other DAWs. At least coming from Cubase and Logic, I miss this kind of functionality. That was a good loop, Eric. Why did you take that out? That was nice. But at this point I thought, why don't I maybe speed up this file to get a different vibe going? So obviously you can do a lot of stuff with these Ableton loops. So I've decided now to, well, half the tempo, which means it plays back twice as fast. And I'm actually looking now for something that could be a nice groove. Going over to the beats algorithm. I'm sure you know this trick where if you put it on beats and the arrow forward and 16th, there we go. You can use it like an envelope shaper. So it'll now play everything only on the 16th notes and in quite a short way. So we got there in the end. Now we have a little shaker loop that's tight and groovy. But it works best if it's low in the mix, I realized. But I like what it adds. Adds like a little swing to it that's nice. So yeah, there was a whole bunch more stuff in that recording that I could have used. But that's something for a follow-up when I continue working on this track. it's not something that I thought would make sense to do in this session because it'll just take a lot of time and it's not so fun to watch people edit, right? So we want to see how we get to a point where this can become a full track within this hour. So there's our little shaker loop. It's only on the left side now because that's the channel we had available to record into. But it's a nice little groove element. So you saw how easy it was to do that, right? I mean, it took a little bit of time to find the sample, but if you have anything that makes a little bit of a shaker noise in a microphone, I very much recommend going that road. Now I've added the utility plugin, which is now only letting the left side of the audio through, so now the shaker sound is in the middle of the sound field. Yeah, and what I was going to say is, you know, recording your own shaker loops is a lot more fun and easier than you think compared to trying to find a fitting sample. And a great shaker is actually like a little box that is, well, I think what you would call is like a little box that you used to put analog films in. Who knows what those are, but you know, like a Kinder Eye, any kind of a little plastic thing that you could put a little bit of sand into or some small stones, you can make a really nice shaker sound with it. I think Stimming also shows that on his masterclass. So now I've worked a little bit on the pitch of that shaker sound to put it a little bit more forward in the mix. What I've done is pitch down the shaker sound a bit, which gives it a nice character. So now I'm switching over to a different track for recording, and I promise to come back quickly to the super channel and the mastering channel. Everything you used to have in the template on the mastering channel is basically now split. So all the live performance effects live on the channel called the super channel, and that gets routed now into the mastering chain. I'll do a separate video on that, on showing you why I do that. The reason is that that allows me to resample only the live performance effects. So if you want to do something with the sound, just solo it, set your live performance effects the way that it sounds good to you, and then you can resample it. I'll do a video on that to show you in more detail. But moving on here with the track, I decided I wanted a different bass, not just a long sidechain bass, but actually a groovy bass. So this is now what I'm setting out to do on the Telemark from Analog Solutions, again using the Beatstep Pro as a input sequencer. There's our grooving bass. Yeah, and we're recording it. You could probably just record this bass mono. I think this doesn't have effects, does it? Yeah, nice. Works well with that bass drum. And I hope you've maybe noticed that because those takes that I did on the pad and the Subharmonicon are quite long, there's always something happening in the track. Like, I hope it's not gotten too boring, except maybe where I was editing, but you know, there's always some movement in the track because it's not just a short little loop that's repeating itself all the time. Like, you know, I'm messing with the filters and the envelopes and the decays, and this was a great feedback I got, or an input suggestion I got from a masterclass I did in the School of Audio Engineering in Hamburg, actually, which was a famous musician from the German scene, and he was showing how he was always doing all these kinds of tweaks live. He's like, don't do this in automation later in your scene and record your bass naked, you know, or your sound. Do it while you're recording and make it alive and make it fun. Why wait? Great advice, you know. Why wait? Get it in exactly how you would hope it's in the track, and if you don't nail it, go back, do it again. Very often I think you'll find a loop in there that works exactly how you expected, and you'll save massive amounts of time. So the bass actually does have a little bit of reverb on it. I can hear it now. Based on the reverb, my SAE instructors would be appalled but actually I like how it sounds for dance music. So now I'm doing what I just mentioned. I realized I wanted to record this bass with the reverb from Ableton. So what I've done is soloed that bass, and as you see, I'm using the resample track, which is getting its sound from the super channel, which is basically what you hear is what you get. So I've now recorded that bass with a little bit of reverb from Ableton, and I'm gonna drop it back over to my bass channel. If that was too fast, let me know in the comments, because I'm happy to show you that little bit, but it's very simple. Just solo the sound that you want to process with the super channel, set your super channel the way you want, which is basically your live performance effects at the top of your controller, right? And then just resample that in solo. And this way, because I've split it, you won't double master it, because you're getting the sound before the mastering, but you are still actually hearing the mastered sound, how it's going to fit into your track. I guess I need to upload this session. I will upload this session. I will upload this session with this analog kick drum, so you can try that sample set for yourself, and so you can listen and see exactly what I recorded and follow back what I've done. There's our funky little shaker. There you see me adjusting the envelope again with that little trick from the warp algorithm. Figured maybe it's an interesting idea to try the other Subharmonicon recording, see how that feels. Sounds to me like I recorded that one clean, that doesn't have any effects on it, or very little. I think what I'm trying to figure out now is which sound would be the best sound to start a track sequence off with. And as you see, besides the pad where I'm cheating a little bit, I'm not actually sending anything from those channels to the effects. Everything's recorded with effects. Checking if the sidechaining is beneficial to the sound, and I think at this point I've thought yes, it's good. And I think at this point I've also decided this is going to be the intro sound. So now I'm switching over to the sequencing view, getting ready to make the sequence in real time, which it's a little bit, I guess, it's not as perfect as if you just drop your blocks, but you can get a very organic feeling sequence down in real time, and just do it a couple of times and then take the best elements from each one, or just take the best one that you did. So what you see me doing now with the live performance effects on the super channel is setting an initial starting sound for how this track is going to open with this sound. I figured that's a nice way to start. Okay, and let's record a track idea, a layout, a sequence for this track. this now. I think I switched off the sidechain on that sustained bass to try the grooving bass with the short notes, which is missing a little bit now. That sidechain on that bass definitely added a lot, but it's okay, you know, you can fix that with just one click of the automation when you have your sequence. So now I have two basses. I have the sustained one and a groovy one. Yeah, and that's a very simple fix later on in your sequence. But at the moment, I'm just concentrated on what could be a good layout. And the reason why I have it on the session view is because I don't remember exactly which fader was going to which track, so I needed to check that. So you see I'm bringing in toms now with a bit of reverb. You see me looking at the floor sometimes, that's because I have a pedal down there that allows me to switch off all the super channel live processing effects just with one click, so that I can get back to 0. The only exception to that is the high pass filter on the kick and bass drum, which I've run into now, which I realize is up. So okay, roll with it. Take it back slowly, bring it all back in. Adjusting the length of the hi-hats a little bit more open, give it a little bit more moving energy forward. Down a bit, just trying some different things. And if you find one setting that works for the track in the automation, then just, you know, set it from there and keep it got that space. It's nice to experiment here, try different things. Just feel free to experiment with what's there and organically discover what works best together and what feels right, rather than trying to figure it out in your mind over days and, well, hours or days of sequencing. Trying different breakdown sections, different vibes, different ideas of things together, different settings on the super channel on this live performance effects. I like that. That's nice for a break. Those high harmonies on the Subharmonicon. Okay, here I screwed up a little bit. I wanted to bring the bass in, but I actually ended up bringing only the kick and the drums in. This is because I've changed my template and I'm using the Rapid Flow analog kicks on channel 1. Normally that would be all together. So there you go. If you don't keep it as simple as possible, you can easily trip yourself up. But onwards and upwards, I realized, okay, fine, it's not what I wanted to do, but that's a super simple fix later in the sequence view. Which is the beauty of this, right? We're not cutting this to 2-track tape the way engineers used to do. Big respect to the people that used to do moves like this on a big analog outboard mixing table in real time with the whole band, basically everyone manning 1 or 2 faders. We could just go back and fix those kinds of things later. I think I had the mad idea here of adding some live things on there and very quickly realized, like, no, come on, this is not worth it. Just keep going with the flow that you have in the track right now. And getting a little bit of effects in there. As you see, all that automation of the super effects is happening on the super channel. But I figured I'd experiment a little bit with the effects, see what's there, if there's any more juice that we can get from there. But I think at this point I started to realize, okay, this feels like an outro already. So I would probably get rid of all those effects that I just tried on the super channel. There's no need for them. Keep it simple. I think this is where I started to fade out towards an outro of the track. Yeah, and it's fun to be able to do this stuff in real time with a controller. I realized I love that little howling sound in the back that got left over. I probably a nice sound to sample and use in the track. I think it's just the feedback from the delay and the reverb. But yeah, that was it. That was the sketch for the idea, for the track. But as you see, I can now go back to, what is it, the arrange view, the sequencing view. Click on that little red button that makes that active. And now I can check back, you know, what does this sequence feel like? And I think an interesting point, something that I asked Sebastian Müllert is, as you see, my track isn't changing exactly, for example, maybe on the 17, you know, where like you would expect, like my kick drum does come in on the 9, but then, you know, the hi-hats and everything doesn't jump in on the 17, which obviously would make this very simple to mix. But I asked Sebastian, like, how do you feel about, you know, your tracks not being laid out in that typical way that you know exactly what's going to happen where? And he said he doesn't care. He's like, whatever, man, as long as the track feels good, I don't care at all. At this point I realized I was monitoring the super channel through the resampling, which is why you saw that huge dip in the spectrum analyzer, which was a phase shift. I've switched it off now so that we now have the clear sound from the DAW. So yeah, coming back to what Sebastian said is, you know, just go with the flow, go with your feeling, create music that touches you rather than music that's technically perfect, and I think he's spot on. Maybe nice to point out here, as you can see, my spectrum analyzer is falling slightly from the red area, which is the bass, to the purple area, which is the highs. It looks pretty balanced. Like there's a nice separation between the bass notes and the kick drum. It falls down. There isn't a huge dip in the mids. There's a little dip around 2K that maybe could be addressed with more sounds there or a little bit of EQing. But overall, actually, I'm quite happy already with this mix. And in big part, that is because, of course, I recorded sounds that were fitting going in, and also because a lot of heavy lifting is happening on the mastering chain, as I'm sure you know if you've used the Rapid Flow template. So I actually haven't spent any time mixing this now, I'm just realizing. And I'm already pretty close to something that's a final mix that could be released, which honestly is exactly how it should be. I mean, mixing is kind of fun for a while, but I much prefer the composing part. I think that's, for me at least, where I found the most joy in creativity. Here you can see again the low cut filter on my bass, slowly adjusting it down. So while this take definitely, I wouldn't say it's like done, it's quite perfect in the sense that I really like the vibe that it has, and this is me saying goodbye. But of course you can go in and edit this and, you know, smooth it out or add things, but there's a lot to be said for these kind of raw captures of vibe and emotion. So with that, I hope this has helped you and given you some ideas of, yeah, how I work in the studio and what you can do with the Rapid Flow template. Have a great time in the studio, and if you haven't gotten the template yet, check out the link below. And yeah, give it a try. I think you'll have a really fun time with it in the studio and be much faster. So thank you for watching this. Have a great time, and see you on the next video.